We just begin. Thank you all for joining us. Definitely not the first webinar in the series that we are running since we started staying at home, but this is a different webinar, Dr. Essam, and even the invitation has been slightly different if people have realized compared to our previous webinars, because this is a live and interactive webinar. So this will be a quite different webinar from all the previous ones in the sense that it's not just a presentation. It will be like an open discussion between both of us. And definitely questions are opened as well to all the dentists who are with us during this evening. I will just ask you, please, as we go through like a list of steps and list of questions that I'll be discussing and talking to Dr. Essam about, if you have any related questions at the area that we are discussing, please feel free to write them in the Q&A box. Okay, so please just keep them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. And we will try to bring them up and discuss them as we go through. If you have a different question or a question that is not related to the part that we are discussing at that time, please just keep them written. And at the very end, we'll have a Q&A session to respond to all our questions that you have. So very quickly to introduce myself, if you haven't seen me before, I'm Mu'taz Sheikh, and I work in the clinical education department as a clinical educator for Dentsply Sirona. And maybe you have seen me in the Dubai office. So I'm based in Dubai in the academy in Dentsply Sirona headquarters in Dubai. And Dr. Essam in Kuwait. So Kuwait is one of the countries I travel to as well. I still have my family over in Kuwait. So it's not the first time, Dr. Essam, to meet, but I think this is the first webinar that we run together. So thank you very much for joining us. And
you're welcome.
So let's begin. Okay, let's begin. I have lots of things to ask, and I think you definitely have lots of information to share with us with the experience that you have. Dr. Essam, to begin with, can you please introduce yourself to the people who maybe, I'm sure like lots of friends, they know you, but maybe some people don't know you as well as everyone on the chat room. So if you can please give us an introduction to yourself, and then we can begin the discussion.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Mu'taz, for the invitation. My name is Essam Zaatar. I'm an endodontist, a certified endodontist. I practice in Kuwait. I work for the Ministry of Health as a consultant endodontist, and I teach at the Kuwait University. And I was running a postgraduate program here in Kuwait with the collaboration with the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. And I've been in business since 1980, quite a long time.
Well, a long time. And for us, this is definitely an addition to everyone who's with us in the room, because I think everyone is really enthusiastic to learn more about endo and share their knowledge as well with us and any questions. So to begin and to, as we said, please, Q&A will be the place for the questions. The chat is just for the if you have any technical issues, you can just drop them. Dr. Essam, I'll begin with my first question. And it's an endo treatment, and the first thing comes first in endo treatment is the access opening or the access cavities. And I'm sure you have seen across like different social media channels and different nowadays that we call like the Facebook University. Different terms have been used, such as ninja access cavities, for example, and then we have the conventional and the things that we already know in the books, like the convention and the truss cavities. How do you see these like new access cavities? Which do you prefer to do when you do an endo access cavity to start with?
Okay. Again, thank you, Mu'taz, for the invitation. I thank Dentsply Sirona for organizing this webinar. And what I have for you tonight, as you can see from the title, the paradigm shift in shaping canals, how everything is going conservative. And as you were saying, now it all started with the conservative access thing. So I have a couple of slides here to share with you in regards to the. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to take your question back to you. Where is it? This is the share screen, and that will be my first slide for tonight. As you can see here, Mu'taz, For the axis, this is what we are used to, the straight line axis. Ever since I got into dentistry, we're looking at, of course, this is, can you see my mouth, Matez?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Okay, so this is just a joke. I don't know what the operator was doing here, the straight line axis. We are all brought up on the straight line axis concept. And of course, what we're talking about here today is the correct straight line and the correct axis opening, not like these mistakes that you see here and there around pictures. So if I look at a case like this and I see the preoperative wing radiograph and I see after the vulvectomy was done, and you can see how much damage that was done there. Although I do understand that it was difficult phlebotomy probably because of the narrowing of the pulp chamber here, but still it was a bit destructive for the area, as you can see on the red arrows there.
Yeah.
Now, your question, endodontic axis, this is what we see in the literature, as you said, the conservative axis, and you see how people are coming up with diagrams trying to illustrate the point. But just to summarize for the audience here, we have two schools when it comes to the conservative axis thing. This is the traditional one, and this is the other, all the others fit on the other category right here. Conservative axis, ultra conservative, the point axis, ninja axis, and finally the what you call the trust axis lately. What the debate is about is this campaign right here are against this one because of they're telling them they're weakening the tooth, while the other campaign on the other side are claiming that you're missing canals. Yeah. So this way, if you go conservative, you might be missing canals. Of course, also you might not be able to clean the canal, the pulp chamber as well. So if I want to summarize answer to your question, this is the quotation that I came up with myself. You look at this, Matez, the axis should be large enough to allow locating canals and safe clean, and at the same time it has to be small enough to preserve pericervical dentin.
Yeah.
The point I want to clarify for the audience here, for us, that what if I rephrase those couple sentences? What if we bring the small enough to preserve the pericervical first, and then look into the canal? Actually, this is what we were accused, as you would see, versus this is the one that was before. Look, just playing with words. So if I'm back to answer your question, that would be I have to start thinking of the crown before I get into the roots. So I would say that I need to have a small enough, the axis has to be small enough to preserve the dentin, and large enough or big enough to allow me to do my root canal treatment. And that'd be kind of the things that we're looking at here. As you can see, always please, and now as you mentioned, the Facebook University, people are seeing cases and they always run and rush into appreciating the root canal. Please, next time you look at the radiograph, before you start appreciating the root canal, look what happened on the crown first, as you can see in these cases. Like this, how I practice is, I almost see most of my patients are referred. So most of them were already being opened before. But this one was the virgin tooth, and you can see here when they opened it here, and you can see how much destruction that was done a little bit here before the patient was referred to us for the root canal treatment. This is the straight line axis. I want to do this very quickly. We were brought up to the straight line axis. We need to preserve that. We need to have a straight axis to the straight part of the canal. This is from John Engel, our Bible in endodontics, talking about the Tom and Jerry, the mouse, the mouse house. See, because if you don't take this wall away, your orifice is going to be partially on the floor and partially on the wall. And we have to say here that the evolution of the new technology would help us probably to get away with this. And I have a question for your audience here. If someone can tell me how did technology help us to get away, even if we work on a condition like this, in a situation like this, and be safe, please write down on your comments or chat or whatever. Where should they write, Matez?
The chat for this question, maybe like the chat will be the right place.
Okay.
And
please announce the first name that answers it right. You know the answer, of course.
Yeah. Right? I think I know the answer for that.
Okay. So the question again is, how did the new technology help us to get away with this? It would help us to do the conservative axis as we proceed to the canal. So this is how we used to do it, and we want to make sure that we remove this triangle here to make the fireworks actually. This is very interesting, and this is the real picture. I've been using this in teaching for my students on this specific photograph here, and that was wrong, 1980. This axis is too conservative, and you need to go for this one.
Like more
and now, 2010, we started reversing the other way around, and with a sense, of course. But this is just for people to understand how we get through. And you can see here, we used to say we need to get this file by the time we finish. Your file is going to be straightened up. This is how we started, and this is how we ended. So the file is straightened up by removing this dentin triangle here. And look at this. This is where we start being concerned about the amount of dentin here. And that was the constricted axis, or the conservative axis. And that just tells you how much we're destroying of the tooth. Now, this is the term that came out in literature, and it came up where we have a pericervical dentin. This is what we need to preserve. The line between, this is the dentin 4 millimeters above and 8 millimeters below the line of the cemento-enamel junction. This term actually, and I'm addressing this from, I know if you go, we've seen a lot of webinars and everyone was talking about the literatures, and I know most of the people here knows that. I'm just trying to put it in a stimulating way to emphasize the point, the take-home point that I want to make clear. Those are the first two people who started this thing, and that was back in 2010. And this is the Clarks and Kadini. And in 2010, they came up with this article, and it was a very interesting article. They started approaching the point very decently, but people were resisting the idea, and they claim at the time that the burden of proof lies on the shoulders of the one recommending it. They say, you guys are coming up with a principle that you're not doing any research to support it at the time. And later on in 2015, this is the article where people started really looking into the pericervical dentin, and they came up to the conclusion that the pericemental dentin is the most susceptible area to fracture from the occlusal forces. And if I take you back to Kadim in that article, when they first came with they were accusing us a lot. They said that ever since we were recognized as a specialty, as an endodontist in 1963, they look at how harsh they were trying to sell their point, that we are apex center focused, that we are creating a super highway to the apex by destroying the structure. And they say that, again, it's the traditional endodontic axis. This is where a lot of accusations, our primary focus and so forth. And surprisingly, at their article, they gave another firing statement. I read between lines, and I try to find interesting things that helps to make the idea clear in our minds as we practice. They use the term of blind funneling, which is very harsh term. That really describes what we are doing. But I wanted to bring the attention of the audience to the fact that when this is first advocated, it was sponsored. This is their disclosure. They were actually, when we were doing that, they were, I would say, marketing for the CK endodontic axis company. They were coming up with those type of, at the time, at the old days, we were using those round burrs, and this is how we gauge the canals. So the advice here for the audience is, please, once you penetrate the roof, you try to avoid using the round burr and use some sort of a tapered instrument, the Endo-Z, for example, from the Densify, that will help you to remove the walls without going into this dangerous area here, if you call it so.
So sorry. Just to make sure I understand correctly, if I understand correctly, so you are with conservative access cavities, but at the same time not too conservative, just to avoid missing canals. If I understand you correctly, like you prefer to be conservative, definitely. But still you want some extension to be able to get all the canals, correct?
Well, actually, it's not optional. I have to. That's very correct. Your statement is very correct. And these are the three axes that we're talking about here.
Okay. And we started actually to get
ever since.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, we just started to get some of the answers to your questions, and maybe we can announce the first one because yeah, about the files and flexibility. And please correct me if this is not right, because this is the answer I was going to say as well. Flexibility of the files in terms of like heat treatments and the flexible activation tips and needles as well.
That's very correct. But you know, I'm an examiner for their college, but I still want to listen to another word in there. You're right, the flexibility and
Yeah.
heat treatment. Okay, how is this going to be reflected? I still need the rest of the answer.
Okay.
But it's correct, they're on the right track though.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay?
So yeah, this is the Dr. Peter Nabil, I think. If there's a small
Peter,
part,
of course. Peter.
Yeah, there's a small part missing. So maybe if they can start writing the missing word, but yeah, Dr. Peter, I think, is the first one to
Peter,
mention.
try harder. You're missing only one word. One word. It relates to the separation. Which one?
Yeah, but it's nice that people they are interacting with us. So I encourage definitely more people. If there are any questions, just bring them up as we speak. And yes. Some people are asking about magnification, if it's mandatory as well, Dr. Essam, for the access cavities. Like,
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. You see, I think up to that level, loops would be fine. Mm-hmm. You can get away with loops. Once you get down there and start looking for the orifices, canal orifices, then you might need to have a higher magnification. You go into the microscope.
Yeah.
But not at that level yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the point, that's a very good question. Please don't relate that being conservative is related only to microscopes.
Yes.
If you understand the anatomy, then when you're in doubt, you can go into the microscope. But probably loops might be enough at this stage until you go deeper and progress further in the treatment procedures.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then the Ninja guy came in 2016 and started bringing up the names, and followed up by Ashwin Ramesh. They came up with the truss axis in 2017. So this is how the history was. And I don't want to bombard you guys. I have a lot of references that I kept until the end if we want to discuss them later on. But everything at the end is related to that you need to. But for me, again, being an endodontist, to be convinced to go into the conservative approach, I want to make sure that I can locate canals. So this is one very good study that I found literature published in 2018. And it's a very interesting study. What they did is they had 60 extracted molars, and they did, first thing they did, the point axis, the conservative axis was maxillary first molar. They were looking for the MB2. And they did the conservative axis, and out of the 60, they were able to locate 19 MB2 extra canals. And then they went large a little bit with their axis into the conservative axis. This is the Ninja axis, the conservative axis, and they were able to locate 13 more canals. So by
just making it a little bit bigger, they were able to locate
more canals to their page. So that will make it up to 31, 32. 32.
Yeah, 32.
Then they went ahead and enlarged the axis a bit more, far more bigger, and up to this, adding to the 32, they found 4 more canals.
4 more, yeah.
Okay, so there's not much difference here between this one and this one here. But surprisingly in this study is that when they took the teeth to the CBCT, they were able to locate 8 more canals.
Yes.
I'm not advocating here to use CBCT routinely to locate canals, but this is, in this study, this is what they came up with. And at the end of the day, this is the total number of canals. They found 16 out of 60 that there were the MB2 and extra mesobuccal canal. And their recommendations were that it must not be required for the tooth to be prepared with the traditional axis. Again, the second mesobuccal canal. There is not much difference between here and there. So that will throw us back to the more conservative approach. And if anybody's interested, the total percentage of MB2 in this study was 73.3%. So in this case, to summarize, that would be my answer to your question, Martez. It has to be small enough to preserve and large enough to allow to locate canals.
Exactly. Yeah, so I like the CISO that you had. I think gave like a good idea that we want to avoid missing canals, but at the same time, we need to be conservative just to ensure the strength of the tooth is maintained. Correct?
Yes. I want people to think operative before they start thinking endo. That's operative. They have to start thinking about the crown before they start thinking about the roots.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, and now I would like to start.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.
Okay. And
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see bigger now. I
see you at all.
Yeah. I want to take us slightly more now from the access cavities after we have like a good access cavity and we maintain or we saved the tooth structure as much as possible in the coronal part. You try to do the same thing when it comes to the first part in the orifice and the root as well.
Yes, of course, definitely we have to do that. Yeah.
So, okay, so now that we are ready to start introducing our files inside the root canal, okay, we have a good vision now from the access cavity we just discussed, and now we're ready to go inside the canals. My question would be, which file, Dr. Essam, when you're doing a root canal treatment, you would always have in your drawer? Like when you open your drawer, you always have a specific file. You cannot start a treatment without an endo file, without this specific file. Which one would this be?
Do you want me to say Melford then survival?
It's whatever. No, it's whatever you have. Nearly 40 years of experience. So whatever.
Okay, but now you give me one choice. That's one file, and I cannot go with that because you have to give me two options. Be generous to me, Martez, because in which one are you talking about? The manual files or the rotary files? Because it's two different things.
So okay, so which would you suggest? Well, then two then. One manual, one rotary. Then which would you? Yeah, because you need to start anyway, like with the manual.
I have to start with the manual, right? Okay. And what we use it. Okay, now let me share with you what I have for you today about the manual files, and that would be okay. Let me share screen, and that would be the second thing is that before we shaping canals, these are the three different things that we have to consider. We have to consider scouting, coronal flare, and the glide path.
Yeah.
And for that, I want to clarify what we mean by scouting the canals.
Yeah.
As you can see in here, when we use our hand files, stainless steel files, I have three take-home messages here that I've learned from George Prudo that were very helpful. I would like to share with the audience here. One is that when you do your picking motion there, you try to have it more into a linear motion. You don't want to change the anatomy here. We were brought up with what you call it, the watch winding movement, which is okay, but try to minimize your strokes as minimum as possible. You want to sneak around the canal until you reach all the way down there.
Yes.
So number one, you want to make it a linear movement as much as possible. Number two is that when you take the file out, please make sure you look at the file because it's stainless steel and it's a rigid file somehow. And look at don't rotate the file. Look at where the marker, this is where the stopper is. And it would help you as if you're taking impression to the canal. It would help you to identify where your curvature is, as if to understand the anatomy of the canal. And once you do that, you're ready to go. That's what we're talking about. Look at this. I want people to understand why I have this diagram in here. If you're holding a pencil, it would be better for you to have more control if you're holding it from here or if you hold it from up high here.
No, like for me, I think that control B, holding it from down, I think
that's the logical thing. Well, surprisingly, that's the same concept when you do the scouting. So my second take-home point for the audience here is when you do the scouting, you should use a smaller file, a lens file, 21 millimeter. We have 21, 25, 31, maybe then supply 30, 27, 28, different companies.
Yeah, it's 31.
But you want to be, whenever the anatomy would allow you, if you have a short tooth or if you have a reference point that would give you that you can do your job with 21 millimeter, you better do that. Simply and remember that. The closer you are to the tip, the more control you have, especially if you have some calcification here and there. And this is a stainless steel file, so you can apply your your pressure on it. And again, if you have a longer file, you will have a bending motion here.
Yeah.
That will dissipate the forces and will give you a hard time as you go through your way to the orifice.
So that's a nice clinical tip, Dr. Essam, about like the selection of the lengths of the file. So just definitely, like there are different cases, different mouth openings in different situations. So what I understand here is if you're able to get shorter files and reach the working length, then the shorter is the better. Let's put it this way.
And the counting phase.
Exactly.
Because
so
it's going to be the other way around in the glide path as we go through. I'd like people to pay attention to that. Shorter files for scouting as much as possible, whenever allowed.
Okay, like for a better tactile sensation. And Dr. Essam, since, as we said, again, this is like an interactive webinar, we have a question related to the access cavity. I know like we moved one step to filings, but wouldn't conservative access cavity openings hinder the hydrodynamics of irrigation and thus the cleaning of the canals?
Well, actually, that's a good question, but let me tell you, the whole point in having the irrigation on the canal is when you have a reservoir. So it doesn't make a difference if the reservoir is big or small, as long as you have walls around you to contain your irrigant as you proceed to the canal now. So I think the answer is not going to affect the hydrodynamic, in my belief, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And a second question now is related to what we were discussing now at the scouting, is even if we have a long canal, we can use short K files. And I think if I understand correctly, this was not the message.
Whenever possible.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, actually, let me tell you, some people, I don't want to see, there is a lot of conflicts and opinions in every step, and everything is working for those who advocated it. I'm not saying that anything against what I'm saying is wrong, but some people like to take the scouting only to the 2/3 of the canal. They don't like to go deeper at this stage. They'd rather wait until they clear the orifice, the coronal surface before they go down.
Yeah.
So, but definitely, if you have the long routes, you'll have to go for the longer files.
Yeah. So Dr. Essam, again, back to my question. So we split them into two now: manual files and rotary files. Manual files for the scouting, and this is a file that you said you will always have in your, like, for any root canal treatment. But
10, 15 standard files, yes.
Size 10 and 15.
Yes, max. Yeah.
Okay, and then you shift or you move to the rotary files, correct? Like, okay, and then which files you always like need to have in your like in your hands for to begin with, because we still haven't yet moved to the cleaning and shaping stages, and this is where the title actually comes for this webinar, like the paradigm shift in conservative cleaning and shaping, or the root canals.
Yes.
So are we ready now for the cleaning and shaping? Are we still missing something between the K files or the scouting and the cleaning and shaping?
Yes, definitely we have to. That's, if you're referring to, definitely we're going to need to have to go for the glide path before we do that. We send any rotary instrument there. But before we go into that, I just want to share with you this case here, because the scouting starts before, to me, scouting starts before you get into the tooth. You see, when you read the radiograph, look at here, that patient was walking around the swelling, and they missed the split roots here. And they were always going onto one canal. So when you read this and identify this in your preoperative radiograph, you should be able to know that the scouting phase is going to be difficult. You may need to loops, magnifications, microscope, whatever. You need to be able, when you maneuver this area here, to make sure, because if you do anything wrong here at this level, you're going to make your job a lot harder. You might lock yourself by not being able to get into the other canal. So this is just the procedure. Then it turns to be that was the operation at the end of the day. This is an apical trephonation. We're trying to assist the drainage, and that's all. Before I go to the glide path, I'd like to talk about the coronal flare.
Yes.
Because I have another point here in coronal flare. You see, when you do the coronal flare here, then later on we'll talk about the true anatomy, and you say here they say orifice openers, orifice modifiers.
Exactly. There are lots of different glide path files, and this was actually part of my question. Like, how do you select them again? So like we now K files or manual files, we set 10 and 15. And actually we have,
Yes.
and we have actually one question on this same point about scouting, is that do you think using reamers instead of K files for the scouting in tight canals, what do you think about using them instead of K files in the tight canals?
Oh, well, that's another good question. Your audience are very into the speciality here.
Yes,
See, if you go back and read the mode of action of the reamers, you have to engage more while you work. You have to engage more into the dentin while you cut. That means you're going to be shifting away from the desired linear operation, linear movement that you do with the file. Okay, so probably I wouldn't use reamers on the scouting phase in myself. I'm just making myself harder, my job harder. I'd rather stick to the file. I don't see any reason why I should to begin with.
Yeah, and there's one question as well. I think it's related to the stage, like the stage that we're in now, scouting, and plus another, like a later stage. What's the difference between scouting and patency? So this is the question: what, like, difference between scouting that we're in now and patency? I think patency will come a bit later. Like
that's a very good question. Scouting is inside the canal. Patency is outside the canal. If I want to put it this, patency is here. Patency is you want to make sure that you have the patent apical frame, and you want to make sure that you don't have any dentin mud down here.
Yeah.
That's what is meant by patency. Scouting is inside the canal. This is the scouting phase, as if you're exploring the canal inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're gonna keep taking as many questions, you're not gonna face tonight. I don't mind, but audience has to understand that.
Exactly. I think like
take a lot of more time.
We are getting like lots of questions, but I will just keep them as we go through. Like I will try to maybe.
No, we'll try to juggle, but please, I have no problem staying, but just make sure that we follow time.
Definitely.
And tonight is the Laylatul Qadr, Kamal, so we need to go pray.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take you back to the coronal thing, and we do the coronal flare, and this is the point. This is what I was saying. This is what the answer was.
Yes.
This is the flexure. What I'm looking for is the cyclicity here. If you send the file way down here, and there is a curve in there, you're straining the file. If you use a method heat treated file, you're a bit safer than other than you use a non-heat treated file. Okay, and another point again that was advocated here by George Proudhon, that tells you that look at the angle that you get into the canal. And this study right here, and I'm going to share with you right now. Yeah, I want you to see what I'm referring to here, Martez, and the audience.
Yes.
Why do I have this line here? What is the shortest distance between 2 points, Martez? The straight line, right?
Yeah, well, I think,
So, when we start when you start here, the green one is before we remove this curvature here. And this is also applicable as we proceed further in the canal.
Yeah.
Once we remove the curve, and if the stopper is here, and I maintain the length, that means my my root length measures are going to be outside the root, as you can see right here.
Yeah.
So that's another point. If you are negotiating a tooth, and you know from your radiographs from the file that you do have a severe curvature here, you want to make sure that you always double check your length, because by the time you finish, you're going to be actually outside the root. And that is very hard to correct. I see a lot of overfillings, and I'll show you a case that we did. If you don't maintain the apical stop here for your gutta percha to pack on. Okay, so we move forward, and this is the study. Actually it's right here. This is the study that I'm telling you about. Look at this one. Here, everything was done correctly, and they did this was the master cone radiograph. But look at one of the files. Look at here. See the difference between this radiograph. Only 1 simple millimeter that this stopper went down means they destroyed here.
Yeah.
The apical stop. And if you ignore it, this is what you will get at the end.
Yeah. Well, that's a very important point as well. Like the length control, or if the file straightens, and then this small difference, it will not be neglected. It will be at the very end. It will like pass the apex. So
we will all suffer if we don't respect
Exactly.
that.
And if I'm like summarizing the points, I think this is one point. The length control is like an important point, and the point we just mentioned about having like different lengths of the file and holding the file like closer
Scouting
to
phase,
the
yes.
scouting, exactly, like holding it close to the, like as a pencil, as you said, as a pencil or as a pen, because then you get a better tactile sensation. So these are like nice small tips. I think it's good for people to remember and write them down, I think.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this is the study that says that whenever you have a straight curve, you put less strength on the file, and then you have a high cyclic fatigue resistance when you don't have as hard curve in here. You remember that?
Yeah, definitely. That's the IDS, Doc. We had it in ADIC as well.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get myself into the glide path. Here we go. That's the glide path section that we talk about here today. What's the glide path? I know I've seen a lot of people talking about the glide path, and I'm not going to be doing any better job as everybody was doing. It's just you think of it, and I had this before. This is the definition. I'm not trying to use references here. I'm not trying to use complicated terminology. I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. This is just the channel between the orifice and the foramen down there. And it looks like, and the reason here, because this drives me crazy when people claim that they can do things with files that are not whatever. Can you imagine Mercedes is a good car, right? But you cannot, how good it is going to be here.
Yeah, I think I've seen this photo, I think, Dr. Essam, on your page, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I was wondering what are these cars.
Actually, I was showing off of the car. It's not mine, by the way. Okay, so anyway, this is for the glide path thing. Let me tell you that it is not only when you have it starts from the very beginning. Look at this case. That's exactly what I mean by the glide path.
Yeah.
Look at this, and you can see it right here. If you don't respect that and appreciate it in the beginning, you're going to be way. And again, whenever you look in here, and I'm going to keep stressing this ever since, as long as we go through, look at the destruction that was done here. That's the pericervical dentin. Look how much. I'm not in a position to judge because I wasn't there. Maybe it was scary, old fitting, whatever. But we always have to think of the crown first. Every time you look at the curve, please don't admire before you see what happened in the crown.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the glide path. Now the question is, I know there are people who are against or not. They don't believe on the reason. I know my friends Essam, and I do respect whatever they're saying. It's working well for their hand. But this is a reference that I came across 2014 that tells you, yes, we need to have a glide path. Yeah. And to sell us the idea, they use a nice words. Remember, I told you I'm very picky on wordings. It's a secret to rotary safety, and it marks a path of modern endodontics. So anyone who wants to be modern has to consider making the glide path first before they go. What do I get out of it if I create a glide path? By doing that, I can maintain the original canal anatomy. It helps me to avoid all the atherogenic mistakes that can happen, like the ledging and the curve and so forth. Transportation. It reduces the risk of separation
of the shaping files, like of the file. Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir. And the way I sell this to my audience is that if you follow the rules, you always get bonus, and your bonus here would be you increase your lifespan of the instrument by doing the glide path. You don't stress your instrument, so you save you money and you increase your lifespan because you don't lose the instrument if you are not a single user.
Yeah. So you personally, Dr. Essam, you don't miss one of them because, like, some dentists, for example, I know they either use manual files and they skip the glide path files. And usually this is the case because I think everyone will definitely use a manual file. Like,
that's a very good point, Marquez.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to answer that question right now because what you're referring to is the manual glide path. You can do a glide path with a hand file.
Exactly.
That's for sure. That's probably what those people are talking about, what you just told me now. But I just have one more reference before I get to your point for my friends who believe that you don't need to create a glide path. This study was done recently, 2017, and they were doing it for both the Wave 1 and the Wave 1 Gold, and it was recommended still to do a glide path. Okay. So that's a reference to use if you the people who claim that you don't need a glide path. They can still do it, of course. And this is the answer. Let's skip that. That's the answer to your question. That would be, which one is better? Should we do it manual or glide path? See this heart right here, what has?
Is this a question for me?
Yeah, okay. No, it's for you, because you told me people say this is actually a translation to what you're telling me now.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
People are saying that you can do that. And if someone can have an answer for that, write it down. I really appreciate
well, yeah, I think.
Which one is better?
I think I'll transfer the question to the audience then.
Which one is better, manual or rotary glide path? يلا, no, we have فطاحل معانا معانا ناس.
Yeah, I think well, let's keep it the first. Let's keep it the first one. Then who will say answer? Okay. Well, we have two answers now. So we have Dr. Mohammed Almish. I think he said rotary, and then we have Dr. Mara Mohammed. She said manual. So these are like the first two answers, like rotary or manual. So
okay. Well, to be honest, I cannot tell you which, because they can both work. But what I'm having here today at the reference that says that, and this is pretty recently, and that is Badang and the others, and that says that rotary is better. And I'll show you the study. By using the rotary, you decrease the chances of the canal transportation again, and you minimize the apical extrusion. I want to throw a thing here, Matez. All rotary instruments extrude material. Studies have shown that they all, whether reciproc or continuous motion, they all and somehow extrude debris outside the root. That's an unavoidable thing. The whole issue is that how can you keep them as minimal as possible? Okay. And again, if you follow all this, you minimize your working length. So when you use the glide path, rotary files, you minimize your working time. And by doing that, again, your bonus is you save money. So you're able to see more patients if you wish. Okay. And this is the study. This is the detail. They did that with the with size 15 hand files and the path files and the ProGlide. And when they compare them, they use the macro CT to see before and after. And this is the files that they use. And at the end of the results, they found that it was the best results they got with the ProGlider, and one with the path files, and finally the hand files. So the answer, according to this, and for me, I use, and now this is the answer for your second question. You said, remember, you said which file you prefer most, you cannot live with?
Yes.
For the hand file was 10 and 15, and for the rotary is this guy right here, the ProGlide. That helps me a lot before I start doing anything as a glide path file.
That's
okay?
Good. Yeah, perfect. I think so.
Now, whatever is left here, just before we move, how do we use it? How do we use the glide path? This is probably, it was not, this was in 1G, I think. But again, this is just to tell you, you need to do 10 repetitive times insertions inside the canal. Just always think of the next instrument. That would make it, that whatever you can do to make it easier for the instrument. The next one, you do that. Okay?
Yeah.
So, as they say, sufficient size is the human. And this is the case, like this is the importance when you have the glide path, as you can see back in here. And even with the simple cases like this, still this is the glide path. This is what you need to do. Anatomy, of course, this is an extra rule here. Look at again. Boom. Okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matis.
Well, I do have like some questions in between, but I think I will, and some are related to what we're discussing, and some of them are not questions. Some of them are like added points. So definitely, I will come to them later, and we can have them at the very end to summarize the topic. But yeah, I would like us now to move a step forward now. So we have we spoke about the access cavities being conservative, but at the same time not too conservative, because we still need to have like proper irrigation and proper cleaning of the canal irrigation. And then we've moved to the files, and you said we always need to have manual files, so size 10 and 15. These are the files you as Dr. Essam, you never skip them, or you always have them in your clinic, plus rotary files as well. And you started with the rotary glide path files, and you've mentioned path files, ProGlider, and you personally preferred ProGlider, and you said that one of the studies showed that you can still have manual glide path files and the rotary, but the study shows rotary is better. So now, so this now takes me to the second, or to the third actually step in the endo treatment, and it's the most important part, I would say, well, endo is like every step in endo is really important. And if one fails, maybe the whole thing will fail. So that's why like we're taking it step by step. And now, again, it's one of the important steps, cleaning and shaping of the root canals. So based on what would you, Dr. Essam, choose your cleaning and shaping files? And I think this is important because we started with being conservative in the axe cavities, not too conservative, but we still have this term conservative, whether it's in the coronal part or the root part. And now in the cleaning and shaping, so which files would you use? Again, conservative files, or how do you choose your shaping and cleaning files?
Okay, I'm just gonna skip this part. Let me stop sharing screen and I'll just remove that thing here. Can you still see my screen?
Not now. Now I can see both of us.
Okay, good. So I have to get you the slides related to what you're asking your question here now. Okay.
So yeah, until you find the slides, like some start with the manual and then the pro glider. So yeah, this is
yeah.
correct.
If you have questions, I can do two things at one time. So ask the questions until I get my slides.
Okay. So yeah. So again, this is like a comment. It's not a comment. It's not a question. Endo before glide path was okay. Was one thing, and then after it's another thing. So I can say the terms later, Dr. Essam, for you in Arabic.
What's that?
I will tell you that like the phrase that has been used in Arabic later on. But yeah,
okay.
like it's like glide path is important. Some people like it's mandatory.
Okay, good. I'm glad they were on the same page here.
Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, some people prefer manual files. And,
no, wait. Some people prefer manual files where? All the time?
No, for the glide and for the step that we were just in, for the glide path.
If it's working for them, fine, no problem.
Exactly. Yeah,
they don't want to save time, it's okay.
Yeah.
They want to take risks.
And that's the beauty actually of endo, because if you look at the feedbacks from people sending them, like many of the comments both are essential. Some say they just prefer the tactile feeling of manual files, and some agree with the study that you shared about rotary files. So I think it's self-preference and how people are used to it. But now, now I think we are ready for the cleaning and shaping of the root canals.
Okay.
If you can give us some tips.
Okay. Now you asked me how do I choose my system?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is where we start. Actually, I skipped part in the presentation, which is okay, but you need to see the size of your whatever glide path file, that one, and then you look up to the next size from the other company. But before, these are five very respected companies where they have very fine products too. But let me take you back, Martez, for people to understand. As I told you, what I'm trying to, I'm not teaching anyone anything new. I'm just trying to let people think and look at things from a different perspective, and take them through the history to appreciate the present and hopefully to hope for the future. This is what I came across that was done 1912. This is the first one of the very first rotary files. Look at the term that they were using here, and toughest spring steel. This is how they looked into the beauty of the rotary fight at the time. This is the requirement. And again, this case was done by Dr. John Serka. This is the person who named our profession now, endodontics. He's the person, he's the one who came up with the term endodontics. And this case was treated by a carbon steel hand file, not rotary, not night eye, not even stainless steel.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to make across here is that please don't think that the rotary is going to solve your problem. Don't think that you can do magic with rotaries. It is not. They are adjunct. They are there to help you minimize your procedural errors and to make you work more efficiently and reproducibly and in a faster way. That's before we start. If I'm back to the question, this is hand versus rotary. This case was done, very proud of it. This was done with the stainless steel hand files, no rotaries. Maybe some GGs up here. This was done long time ago. This one was done by rotary, the BTN. They're the same. So, but definitely rotary is, now I think hand filing is a history if you're doing the full procedure with hand files. Back again, your question, which system do I use? This is the initial file. Let me take myself out of the screen. And this is the scouting file, and this one is only 8. And then this is what we need to do, Mataz, in endodontics. We want to take this stopper from here to here. That's we have to think
to reach
the other way around. That's to reach the other way. This is what we're trying to do. And we need to identify the task. If you see clinically, this is what it is. This one happened to be, I think it was wave 1 gold. And this is the secret. How to do it. You need to identify the task. Then we go to the market, and we have this one is like everything. If you want to fly, if you want to even go to the space, you can use files and new densify for a jump. This is just what they use to attack. It becomes very confusing. Now, this is an answer to your question. If I'm adopting a system, I look into the difference between the size and taper of the glide path file, and as you can see here, how close I am to this one. Definitely it's expanding 5 different systems, and that will help because this is going to tell me how easy I'm going to get into the canal. Okay?
Yeah.
And back to the conservative concept, this is what we call, as Joe West, not me, call it a sexy looking radiograph. I call it figure hugging radiograph. The filling is beautiful and everything is great. And I see a lot of this on the web. But if you look up here, talking about the PCD and how destructive we might have been here, that's the issue. In this case, it was done by VPN. And if you look at it versus this one here, look at now how much preservation we have here, this one compared to this one here. Look, see, if I look at this thing, I would like to see the preoperative also, just to make sure that this is not an under instrumentation of the canals. It looks like it was pretty narrow canals at the time. That tells you the whole difference. And this is where the idea of the true anatomy came from, Martez. Now I think it's a proper time to help people or to share with people the stages of the development of the instrument. These are 2 different systems. I'm using this here only for clarification. This is the fixed taper, where you have the taper is 6%, 2506. This happens to be the TS2 by Mark Omega, and this one is the PTN by Densiplex. This is where you see the fixed taper, see 6% as you go all over the route, the length of the file. This one here, look at the taper, 6, 7. That's what we call the progressive taper, because this is the philosophy of it. Having this in mind, just get the numbers. Look at the numbers that we get in here when you translate these percentages into numbers. Now, the concept of the true anatomy when it came is that what if, and the question is, what if you are able to develop an instrument that would allow you to enlarge the canal and clean the canal at the apical part? And you see the different sizes that will correspond to the tip size. I'm not saying numbers now, not to confuse the audience, but this is what it is. And you will have one taper here. All the instruments will have one taper. So you don't need to enlarge here while you're enlarging where you need, only where you want, as you can see in this one in here. Then the files are designed this way. So hopefully you're able to clean here without the need of destroying the anatomy or the dentin on the coronal part here. I know a question is going to be raised here. How can you get your arrogance in there? Please hold it. I'm going to answer that as we go through. And then you end up with the filling like this. Okay. And this is diagrams again, just to show. I keep trying to get away from our image so I can see my slides. Okay. So this is what we say, and this is how we say. This is the taper. They're all the same size here, but the taper differs here. The sizing and the taper differs in here. Okay, the idea, they made the idea and they launched the file. This is how much you saved from the dent in Mata. Look at this in here. If you go with the progress for fixed saber, and it will add up to the protection. The idea came, they're pretty excited. These are the two developers of the file, George Brodo and Ove Peters, and they launched it in March 2019. Specifically in March, I was lucky enough to be there. I had a chance to chat with Ove, and then I took another course with
Dr. James Gutman.
Yes, in Beirut lately. And I've attended many webinars for Brodo, excellent educator. And now this is the file that they came up with, and this is just to put to compare the sizes in here. There's a lot of there. I'm not going to try to talk much about the manufactured aspects of the file. You can probably do that anytime else, because I don't think we're running out of time, and I want to focus more on the clinical aspects of that. But at the end of the day, you have a file that is average taper. They don't disclose two things that you don't know about this file. We don't know yet about the file. One is the metallurgy, what kind of metal is that, and two is the taper of the file, the true anatomy. Okay, and this is the study that they use of. This is actually a live picture that I took from during his presentation. And you go to this study that was published by FUS 1999. And the reason for extraction of the teeth, if you put these, you take away others than the operative things, and you find out that the tooth breaks 73% of the time because of the treatment, the endo lesions, the mechanical lesions. And then there's another study in 2006 that tells you the same thing. That was done by where they find that the more taper, this is the conclusion that the roots were significantly weakened by the preparation of the great taper ends. So everyone knows now that we need to go conservative even within the roots itself. This is a pretty recent one also that tells you, we're not sure yet how much do we get out of that, but at the end of the day, it has some influence on the fracture resistance.
And as you have mentioned, I think that the preparation mostly, or the cleaning mostly happens at the apical third. But then as you go towards the middle and the coronal third, it doesn't change, I think.
You don't know, you prepare, but you prepare as only as you need. You don't need to over prepare the way this file is designed. You definitely, there is a taper factor there, and you do clean the things. And when we get to that, okay. Now this is the clinical, this is a video that I made and how it works. I'm going to show you how to use the rotary true anatomy. This is pretty clinical. I'm going to give some clinical hints on how I do endodontics. This is a 3D printed tooth, it's triple curvature. Actually, I strained the file. I stressed the file. This is what we did. We're using a special needle that we'll talk about later on. And we make the canal wet, and we started. This is what I was referring to, the scouting the canal. And look how we're going to do that in here. See? Okay, I'm going to stop here. See, this is, the file went passively up to here. Then this is going to be my homework. This is what I'm saying here. This is when I'm going to start applying preferably a linear movement. I will watch winding movement with a minimum of, there we go. Here we go. Now, so we did the scouting, and as you can see, when I get the file out, this is, I'm start beginning doing the scouting thing, okay? Probably gonna speed this up a little bit. There you go. This is what we're referring to. You see the curvature on the file? Understand how it came out? This is the impression. This is what I'm telling you, as if you took impression. If you rotate the file, you will not be able to know which direction your curvature is. So you want to make sure that you just don't take the file out and rotate it and look at it. You want to keep your hand steady and get the file out and look into it.
So this is why you prefer to keep like a vertical motion, not a watch winding.
Linear movement as much as possible. Definitely, I would have to have
somewhat,
but it's the envelope of movement. That's what we call it. The envelope of movement has to be as minimal as possible. Okay. Now we are into. Please look at this. It's an orifice modifier. It's not an orifice opener, orifice shaper. And here we're tackling the first curvature. Remember, we said we have 3 curvatures here, and you go into strokes And I'm going to share with you the design of the file very soon. And now this is the design of it. 16 millimeters, diameter is 2008. It's a heat treatment again. And this is what it is. It's recommended very much. This is one of the beauty of the design of this instrument here is that a conservative. Look at this. Okay, I want to stop here. There you go. Look where the file is cutting.
Yeah, just at
right
the
there.
part.
Yeah. Please, when you take the file out, look at it. See what are you doing inside the canal. I keep doing that. I'm gonna have to go back. There you go. Are you sleeping on me, Mataz?
Yes. It's very clear. I think the video is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So this is the one we're going to the first curve. I think we stopped here, and we did the strokes.
And then we had a look at the tip.
Yeah. That's the first curvature. And these are the specs of the file. It's a very short, 16 millimeter. The cutting plates are only 7 millimeter.
Yeah, it is very short and it's golden color. Like it's not gold, but it's got golden color.
You're very right. It is not. They say they added the component to the heat treatment. They won't tell you what component that is, but we'll find out. Don't worry. We'll find a way to find out.
Eventually it will come out.
Eventually, yes. Now they do the irrigation. This is the needle, the true anatomy irrigation needle. It's a polyethylene needle. It's very flexible that you can use. Yes. And now you can see here, we're back again doing the recapitulation to make sure that everything is going in order. I'm going to try to skip that for the time safety. And now we're getting into the glider. And this is the 1702. Remember, we talked about the size and taper. Look at this now. This is the strokes. And here, this is not an eccentric file. This is the cross section. It's just the regular rotation file. And you can see in here. Please ignore this. Of course, the rubber is very hard to handle. It's not like clinical situation. So pushing the rubber outside does not mean that it pushes the debris out. This is the specs about the file, as you can see here. And it has two cutting edges, less resistant. You need to apply pressure. And again, it's heat treated. Look at the cross section here. Not like the file itself. It's not like the prime. It's a glide. It's a 2-point contact. Okay, and see then they do the recapitulation again.
Key files.
Okay, and this is the primary. Now remember we said this is a 3 curvature. And we have 3 sizes here. This is the standard. What is the 25? You have a smaller one that is the small size. I should have stopped here and used the small. But I decided to stress the file and to keep pushing it and see how much I will take. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but I did it here, hoping that to see how much. Look at where are we cutting here. Okay. See, this is the piece are coming here, and then. Continue recap. Take it in stages. Yes, please.
Sorry, do you apply any pressure, Dr. Essam, as you go into the file? Like,
it's a poking motion. Actually, that's a good point. That's a good question. I'm going to stop the video here, Mataz, because the advocates of the system claim that you need to do it's like you follow the canal, you follow the anatomy, you don't push it. Like it's a very passive, linear inward movement. It's not a brushing. You don't want to alter the anatomy. It's not that brushing is going to hurt the instrument. It is the concept of the design of the file to maintain the anatomy. Okay?
Okay. So it's more like a packing motion then.
Yes. Packing motion. You're very correct. And then we go into the
recapitulation again.
Now we're taking the second stroke. We took first interval was 2-3 strokes. We stopped recapitulating. We're going down more. Now, here I'm having a hard time to reach. Look at this here. This is what happens in a clinical situation. I stopped and I recapitulate. This is the time you need to invest some time to save yourself this problem. Joe West called it restrain yourself. You stop, you leave everything, and you go and irrigate and recapitulate. And in this case, then you go down and then you safely go to the third curvature. Okay?
Yeah, I think this like explains
the beauty of the irrigation needle. There you go. Look at this, where the file is cut off. Ah. There we go. This is the final strokes where you get to the apex.
Essam, sorry, one question
And then
is,
we do the
yeah, one question is, what is meant by the third curvature?
there is 3 curvatures in the root. One here,
Yeah, it's like one
and
question.
one here, and there's a third one here. Yeah, but it was very hard. See, it was very hard when you shoot from the microscope. The light is reflecting. See here,
Yeah.
that was the best angle that I was able. I'm not expert in that. I was just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
This was the best angle that I could take without getting reflection from the light of the microscope to be able to see the canal. So there is a third curvature here.
Yeah, it's like an S, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, it's like an S shape, and I'll show you at the end. No, actually, you'll be able to see it at the end. We did the trial and we did everything. Yeah, this is it. Now you can see the 3 curvature. Okay, look at this. This is the third curvature.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There was. Let me stop here. There's one here and one there, and the third one is down there. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the 3 sizes that we have. I'm gonna stop here because I'm really sorry, guys. There we go. These are the 3 sizes. They come into prime, prime, not primary, small and medium, and you can see the tapers. That's a 26 and 20 and 36.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're all over tapers. And then you have, this is the needle, the irrigation needle, and it's a it's a double vented, back to back, and they can reach deeper into the canal.
So do you think like the 2 openings instead of 1 would be more useful in this case of like a conservative preparation, do you think?
Well, to be honest, they are useful either way. So not just for the conservative, but in this case, definitely it will be very, very important. But let me tell you something here, Mataz.
Yes.
Let me just,
please.
I think we're done with this section here. Stop sharing. Let me go to the... There we go. When you do the irrigation, the whole point is that you think of the wave on the sea, the water there. When you go in the canal, please try, don't start delivering the irrigants until you go deeper in the canal. And when you do you're delivering the solution, you pull out as if you're taking all the way the debris out with you. And make sure you irrigate the coronal, the pulp chamber first, because that will minimize the debris on the pulp chamber. So by law, it will help the other debris inside the canal to come out too. There are a lot of tricks in there that the word tricks, but there are a lot of hints in there that we can share. We can talk about until tomorrow. One of the things is you should not use a chelating agent, a paste type chelating agent when you use a rotary file, because you're only blocking. You use it with hand files, manual files. With the rotaries, if you use them, you're blocking the flutes of the file and you're making it dull. It is not cutting. Then you need to apply force. Then you run the risk of breaking it. That's the eraser when you shave your. We don't shave now because of the
because of the Coronal
situation here. Now you need to wash your eraser in the water. You need to make sure that the flutes are clear so it cuts more.
Doctor, so I have like one last question, if you don't mind, from my side. Now that we've went through the different steps, like from the access cavities, the glide path, whether it's manual or rotary, and we saw some studies on this, and we've spoken about the cleaning and shaping of the files as well. Does this mean like if you have a good file in your hands, you can do any cases with, or you still select different, like one file can help you do all the cases, or how do you choose your files again.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. No one guide can help me do everything. I don't think any endodontist can do that. Can say that. No.
Okay. So
can you just pass that next question, please? No,
yeah.
you always have to. It all depends on the anatomy. And if you can expert, you may be able to. I might be able to do that, but I won't teach to people because I know when I stop what to stop. If I take it as a principle, definitely I'll destroy the tooth.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen people in Circum. I've seen a person doing live demo, and he was short of files, and he did violate a lot of rules, but he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Essam, I think we are reaching towards the end of the discussion. We have some questions. I will bring them out.
But sorry.
Yes, please.
Before the discussion, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I still have to share with you two more things about the true anatomy file before we get to the questions.
Yes.
And I had some cases to show you with you too, but let me see. First, I'll share screen. And I'll get in here and do that. There we go. It's the system. It's the word V taper stands for variable taper, okay?
Yeah.
Because we don't know the sequence. We know it's 04 taper, but it is not continuous there. We don't know what exactly it is. And the heat treatment, we know it's gold, but it's not gold treatment. The color is gold. And I heard Brudo one time say, I don't know why we choose the gold. Maybe they could have chosen different colors. They could make it anything. Yeah. I understand. I assume so. And it has the specific gutta portion. Of course, might be able to use others, but this is the recommended gutta portion and the needed. Okay?
Yeah.
And so you do your orifice modifier, your glide path, and then most of the time you should be able to do it with this. Or that's why it is most of the time, not always. Then you may, if you have a tight canal, you can maybe use this one, the Priming S20. Or if you have a bigger canal, you can jump into the medium one. Yeah. Okay? Two very important issues about the file also is the size of the handle right here. Yeah. Look at here. Look at this here. This is the one. This is just an example. The Pro Taper neck. When you insert the file into the handpiece, you have part of the handle here is shown. This handle is 9.5 millimeters.
So you save this one
this one
1.1,
so
1.5.
Yeah. So when you put the file all the way, this is how it looks like, right? There is no gap in here. The handle is not short, it's very short. This is why they have color coding on the instrument itself. So because if you're not going to use the stopper, you need to know which instrument that. This is why they have the color coding on the stopper too. What is this going to help us doing? That's the whole story. I don't know what burden has to do with laws and the bending ability, and it's just the shorter. Just to make it short, it makes it more convenient, and it would help you when you go into the posterior teeth also, because of the shorter thing.
Yeah.
The last thing is the size of the wire. Look at this. Is the MFD is called the mean file diameter. The initial raw file before they did the fluting, most of the time they're 1.2. There are marked there 1.5 diameter. These are very thick then. This one at the end, the diameter is 8 millimeters. If you tell me that this is what difference does make, because I've heard it from someone, this is about 20% or 10% of the side. That should be relevant. Don't look at it as minute. Okay, and this is the best we can get out of Dentsply Melford company in terms of the taper of file. Still not disclosed.
So it's like a shorter handle. The diameter is smaller, and the taper is different. So it's like three things for the files.
Yes, you're very correct. Now, conclusion in terms of the true anatomy file, this is what we have. Gives you more space for debridement. You're going to leave this for the people to watch later, Matthias, right?
Sorry, again, Dr. Essam?
you were going to leave this presentation later for the audience to review, because I won't have time to go over all this.
Oh
so
yes,
they can.
yeah, 100%. Like we can, yeah, definitely we can send them later after, like after the webinar, we can send them like a few slides if you want to share with them. For definitely.
Yeah, we'll see. We
Yeah.
probably can do that.
Yeah, even the recording as well. So like, yeah, just for everyone to know, the recording for this webinar will be sent by emails to everyone. And if you have like any questions, just maybe now you can start typing them. And like as you type your questions, we will start responding to them now. And definitely, Dr. Essam, if you don't mind, we can discuss it together, and we can prepare a document and send it to everyone after the webinar if there are questions that we can respond.
Don't make promises, please. Don't make until I clarify things. Let me try to sort it out, and then we'll see how we can do that. Let me first. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and are we done, Marquez? I think we're time-wise.
We are nearly done. Yeah, I think we are done. Like from my side, my questions are done. So like I wanted to like I had a question in access cavities or access openings and then in glide path files, manual and rotor, and then the cleaning and shapings. So I think I covered the endo part. We still have some of questions. We can definitely respond to them. We have taken some of the questions as we went through, but now we still have a couple of questions that maybe will take us back to the first steps. Okay, so can you please tell us again, Dr. Essam, why we are using picking motion instead of a brushing motion? Remember in the video.
One, we don't want to stress the fight. Two, we want to maintain one, we want to maintain anatomy. Two, we don't want to stress the fight. Three, because the whole concept is conservative approach. So when you do the brushing, I've heard Gottman saying it doesn't hurt to make brushing. So it is not like if you do brushing, everything's go wrong. It's going to go wrong, but it just you have to follow the rules. You have to follow recommendations. But you can do, but you'll be violating the whole concept behind the file design.
Yes. Dr. Essam, I think we answered this question.
One thing I forget. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I forget to tell you one very important thing. I've talked about the table, but I didn't talk about the tip size. The tip size, we have 20, that's the yellow, we have 26, and then we have 36. It is not 25 as we are used to, and it's not 35 or 40 as we're used to. The tapers are, the tip size is 26 and 36. Okay?
Yeah.
There is tolerance. There is not much difference between 25 and 26 to begin with. This is number one that people have to understand. But when you listen to Brudo saying about the taper, why did they choose the 25? Because they went to the literature. The study was done by Benjamin in 2004, I think, and they were measuring the diameters of the mandibular mesial canals, mandibular molar mesial canals. They were averaging between 0.6 up to 0.26 millimeters. That's the maximum. That's the original anatomy, the original size of the mandibular canals. So that's why they came up with the number 26, size 26 and 36, of course, based on this study.
Another question is on the speed and torque, Dr. Essam. So the speed and the torque.
And I forgot a lot. They're very, very good questions. Yeah. Speed and torque. Speed, this is one of, again, what the speed is fixed and the torque is fixed. And the numbers are 500 RPM and 1.5 Newton for the torque. And let me add here, we have time? Okay. The speed and torque was very important for the designers of the file. Speed, RPM is related to, you'd be surprised, it's related to the type of the metal of the file itself. The heat-treated files are known to be soft files. And soft files best operate on a higher speed. But when you have a higher speed, you run a risk of clogging the instrument, of blocking yourself inside the canal, or getting into procedural errors and stressing the file. When you have a minimal torque, it's a combination between the minimal torque and the high speed and the anatomy of the tooth itself. All this together will help you safely synchronize the peaks that we go through.
Yeah. No. And another question is patency a safe procedure? Many clinicians claiming that it can push some debris behind the apex. What do you think?
How much time do we have? Patency, no, I'm just joking. Patency is the big issue. There's a conflict in the literature whether you should or not. To make the story short, if you're asking me about my beliefs, I do believe in patency. I don't want to leave any dent in mud at the critical apical zone area. I don't want to leave, I want to make sure there's nothing between the minor and major foramina so I can put my instrumentation obturation at the end of the day.
And one question, according to the case, in a multi-planar curvature or an S-shaped curvature, it is better to use K-file number 10 and then go to rotary glide path as they are more flexible.
Do you have a name for that? That's a very, very evil question.
Yeah, and then like,
just one. Very good one.
Yeah, and then the continuation is like 15 stainless steel files will be too aggressive for an S-shaped curve canal or a multi-planar curvature.
That's a very good question. Yeah. Obviously, the person who asked the question is an ignorant. I understand the risk. Now, let me rephrase it. The gentleman here is asking, or the lady is asking us, what if you have a triple curvature and you are, if I understand it correctly, and you need to send the file, there might be risky to send the rotary file or your glide path, and you're probably better off using the 15 file first. In this case, if I was only using 10. But again, I was seeing the tooth in my hands. These are very technical things. I'm glad that someone picked it up. Probably in this case, you could have used the 15 first before you go to the rotary. But remember, this is true anatomy glider. This is 1702. So from 1002 to 1702, well, they added metallurgy and the cross section of the file. It's two different games. So you're still safe. Probably until you build up the experience, you can do that. And you know what? Before I built up my experience, you'd be surprised. I was using it for that size 15 headstrom file. People might shoot me for doing that. I'm using a small file in a very stressful situation, but I always get away with it. Not always, alhamdulillah. It all depends on how you adjust yourself where you fit. We all live inside Canals, so we have to get acquainted together with that.
Exactly. So some of the questions is how will you be getting the recordings of the lecture? So again, this webinar has been recorded, and it will be sent, like a link will be sent to everyone on their emails. Okay, so a link, you'll be receiving a link. You just click on the link and you will have the video. You can just download the video on your PC or laptop. Okay. So how could I avoid? Well, it mentions edges, but I think it's ledges. How can I avoid the ledges?
Good question. You want to stay safe? Always remember going into strokes, short amplitudes. Stop straining yourself, especially on your first stages of learning. Restrain yourself, even if the file is taking you inside the canal. Don't be tempted with the invitation. Stop and get out, recapitulate. Always think of the millimeters. Go down there, take 2 millimeters or so and come out, irrigate, recapitulate, and go again. And of course, if you have a curvature and using stainless steel, you want to pre-curve the file and do so many things. And in that level, when you have when you're in this condition, you can use the lubricants also will help you a lot. Like the RC Prep or whatever, but you want to make sure that whether you're using it on a vital case or non-vital case, that's a different ball game we're not going to talk about.
Yeah. Dr. Sam, so one of the questions, according to the taper of this file, I'm still curious about what sealer should I use with thin and long root, especially if we know that the apical area will obturate with single cones. So the question is mostly related to the sealer.
Oh.
Yeah, what sealer should I use? If thin.
Don't get me in this discussion. PC sealer is an old guy. I mean that. Well, if you choose to use the PC sealer, you can definitely with the new instruments and with the new heating system that you have for dense supply, we are able to heat the Gutta Percha 5 they are able to heat the gutta percha up to 5 millimeters ahead of your heat carrier. So you can definitely, and with the flexible, the night-eye bloggers, you can go way down there and do your packing.
Yeah.
And if you use if you use heat, not wave heat.
Yeah. And so we can get like 2 more questions, Dr. Essam. We'll be finishing like in 4 minutes. So it's like 11:30 for your time. Is the patency a safe procedure?
We'll answer that. It should be. Both benefits versus risk. That's how you look at it.
Yeah.
You're concerned with what you see. It's a two campaign. Whether you don't want to push the pee outside, or you don't want to implant infection into the canal, or you want to make sure that you don't leave infection inside the canal.
Yeah.
So inside the canal or outside the canal, that's your choice. That's Richard still debating.
Good. So one last point, I think it's about irrigation. So
I was waiting for that question.
Should we use chlorhexidine 2% and sodium hypochlorite in the same time, and the concentration, like a question mark concentration?
No, but we definitely, we cannot mix them together. We have to have an interface in between. Between the edit and the chlorhexidine, you can use a Q-mix that is both together. But the question is now, the concentration is 2%. It's not the one. The one you have on the mouthwash is 1.2%. Was 0.12%. So you need the generic one for irrigation canals. Yeah. But the concept of using chloride, I don't use chlorhexidine even for retreatment. I used to use it for a long time, ever since they came up with it. But to be honest, it has been alleged. I can't remember where I've read it, but it is not the flora is the same. Yeah, I remember Matthias, December. He's a bit aggressive, and he said if you find Epicalus in there, it's a recontamination. It's an indicator for contamination for the coronal phase, not from the canal. There is no difference between the microbial flora between the original cases and the retreatment. And I hope nobody shoots me for this, but please go read the literature. I'm going to try to remember the names of the. I'm hopefully bring them up to you. That says there's no difference in the flora.
Okay, so I think we've covered more like the questions we received about irrigation, about the files, the speed and the torque of the files, glide paths, even sealer as well. We discussed about the sealers. So we've covered I think a big amount of information in this webinar.
There's a lot about true anatomy I wouldn't have the chance to say, but it's okay.
Definitely, like it's time as well, like it's a bit limited, and plus of course your experience, like for this amount of time, it definitely is not enough. Like an hour and a half is not enough, definitely, to know from.
You'll be surprised. I don't know much now. You'll be surprised. I'm getting old, but
no, you're not. It's always nice to have you with us, Dr. Essam. Always nice to have these discussions with you. I personally enjoyed it. I hope everyone else with us enjoyed it as well. We will keep the webinar running, so we will be off, but just type your questions in if there's anything that we have missed out. Dr. Essam, it was a pleasure having you with us. Thanks a lot for the information. Very nice.
You're welcome, Marquez. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. I just want to show you before we leave, I want to share with you one case that is right here. And if those who want to leave the room, they're welcome to. But this is the case that was done, and that's what I'm saying, that any fight that people will jump into rotaries and do this type of treatment.
Yeah.
This treatment was the full mouth root canal, was done in Eastern, whatever, not exposing name, and the prosthodontist removed the fixed prosthesis on the back there and asked us to do the treatment. So please don't think that the rotary is going to help you. And we started trying to retreat the case, and everything was done with we had to do a lot of work for that patient at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing. This is for the specialists who are with us today, because I know I've talked a lot of basics for them, might have been boring, but this study I'm using to tell them what is coming in the very near future in the market, and I'll tell you how I found out. This was published in 2019, and this study, they were looking, it's a histological study, they were trying to see the efficacy of the cleaning, the tape, actually, particularly the site of the apical preparation. You look at this one, and how effective is your irrigation system going to be. And they found that, of course, when you have a smaller taper, the syringe type, pressure type irrigation, you have a better cleaning when you use, when you enlarge the file, when you larger sizes, okay?
Yeah.
But when you are using ultrasonic activation, it doesn't make a difference. So you can get away with the smaller table, with the smaller size apex, right? And they've done it in both rounded and oval canals with the ultrasonics. Use ultrasonics, you can use it better, okay? Now, this is what I'm showing you here now. We know from the literatures that the dentin, the bacteria can penetrate the dentin up to 60 microns, the tubules. Doesn't mean that we have to remove 60. That's 0.6.
Yes.
This diameter. So it means we have to use all the cases, we have to use 0.6 to be able to remove that accretion? No. We need to find a system that would allow us to do the, and I know if we still have my friend Dima, she helped me in rephrasing this statement right here. And this is where we had the minimal radicular dentin removal and maximum microbial load reduction. This is where the future of endo is going to be in. Not necessarily with this company or whatever, but with a similar thing. We are trying now with the available tools, if we can develop a good disinfection to the canals under a conservative approach, we should be able to. We should take this direction. And I think this because John Brodo is also in that same direction. Of course, Anil Kashan is doing a lot of work where they use this. Now, if you look at this slide here, this is very advanced information for the specialists only. Don't worry about it for the non-specialists. This is how they use the system. And it all, at the end of the day, comes to the specific lab they have, the probe that is able to get into the canal. And I know now they are testing in Toronto at Anil's lab, they're testing the 2004. And the information is being declared already, that they are able to use where they have the arrogant solution, that they have the activated with light and so forth. And I've seen people that are claiming, this is, I don't know if this is classified information, that I had to dig to find out, this is the patency. And if you think you're mixed up with the technology, this has been only on May 2019, where it was very recent. And they're working on it. And these are the 2 or 3 people who are doing that. Rodo, Sergio, and me. Don't shoot me for exposing this information. Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was very nice evening that I had with the audience. These are my contacts, and please feel free to ask me anytime if I know the answer, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Essam. Thank you very much, Dr. Essam. It was a really nice evening with you. I enjoyed it. I hope everyone else enjoyed it with us. My last message to everyone is Ramadan Kareem, and please stay safe and Eid Mubarak. We will be having next week like a holiday off, and then of course we still have like another webinar tomorrow and after tomorrow on lasers and on another topic in endo treatments. So please be with us. And then we have next week, it's a holiday, and then we come back straight after Eid with new webinars. So thank you very much. Anything, please email us. Thanks again, Dr. Essam, and stay safe. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.